Hello everyone and welcome to SysKit's webinar with Agnes Molnar, How to Increase Productivity by Investing in SharePoint Search. My name is Ante and I'm Product Marketing Manager at SysKit and I will assist Agnes during today's webinar. Most of you already know Agnes as she has been a Microsoft MVP since 2008, but I will still mention that she has dedicated her career to optimizing performance and value of search applications, especially with SharePoint and Office 365. She's the CEO of Search Explained, and she was a founding member of the Search Network, which is a global community of independent search professionals. So I assure you, you're in good hands today. Let me tell you about us in short. SysKit is a software development company from Croatia, and we create tools for SharePoint, Office 365, Windows Remote Desktop Services, and Citrix. You probably know or even use some of our tools, like for example ASP.Docket, SysKit Security Manager, or SysKit Insights. Since our foundation in 2009, we accumulated over 3,000 customers across more than 75 countries worldwide. So if you have any questions about us as a company or about our tools, please feel free to contact us through our website. Now, let's go over some important information for attendees. All attendees will receive a recording of this webinar as well as the PowerPoint presentation used in the webinar. So if you miss something or you simply want to refresh your memory, you will be able to do so. Also, at the end of the webinar, there will be a Q&A section in which Agnes will answer as much questions as the time will allow. So be sure to submit everything you want to know via GoToWebinar application. Okay, Agnes, I will make you a presenter now so you can take off. Is that all right?
Sounds good, thank you.
Okay.
So, thank you for the introduction, Ante. And first of all, let me tell you why is it important to talk about search and why is it important to talk about why important into search, because most of the organizations I've been working with and during the last over 12 years, they think that at the beginning that, okay, with installing SharePoint or with setting up the Office 365 tenant, we do have search. So why we should do anything about it? And technically speaking, it is true. Technically speaking, you have the search services running. You might even have a search center, which you can use for searching. But the question is, you can really find the information you need. So I usually say that the reason is that the difference between the expectations and the reality. The expectation is like this beautiful dancing ballerina. When you set up SharePoint or Office 365 tenant and you tell the users they can use search, this is what they expect. They expect a beautiful search center where they can enter their queries, and they expect to have relevant and timely results. However, the reality is different in most cases. The reality is like this. The users are confused. Why? Because they cannot find what they want to find. They cannot find the content or documents they need to get their everyday jobs done. They are confused. They stop using search. They might go back there once or two times, but then they just give up. And if they don't use search, then search doesn't have any business value for your organization. It cannot provide the relevant results for the users. The users don't even use search, therefore no business result at all. So this is what I find a lot, and this is what we have to fix, so to speak, several times. So to discuss what you can do, let's discuss first where your organization is today. In every organization, you do have many different applications for different cases, for different users. You have application that is being used by marketing. You have additional applications that are being used by HR. You have applications that are used by sales, etc., etc. And if I work for your organization and if I know what my tasks are, sooner or later I will know where to collect those informations. For example, let's say I work in the sales department. Sometimes I need information about the existing customers. Sometimes I need information about potential customers. In some cases, I need invoicing history. In other cases, I need information about the products or the services of my company. And those information pieces are all stored in different places and different applications in the organization. As a sales guy, sooner or later, I will learn where to find what, but it takes a lot of time. There are several researches that show that an information worker spends over 1 day per week with searching for information. 1 day a week, which is a lot of time, every information worker. So we have two goals here. Number one, increase the percentage of finding the proper information. Number two, decrease the time, shorten the time that the users spend with search. And most of the users have this kind of feeling when they search for information. They feel lost, they keep searching, they keep trying to find the proper content they need, but at the same time they are just lost and they give it up sooner or later. So again, we have to shorten the time we spend with searching, and we have to provide better results to have the users to find what they are searching for in shorter time. So the promise of enterprise search is it connects your applications and provides unified dashboards, provides unified result sets, provides unified search-driven applications to your users. Therefore, it will shorten the time that the users will spend with search, and also it can it can make the results better because you can focus on the needs of your users, and therefore you can provide better relevance of the results. So usually when I talk to my clients about search, I tell them search is incredible. It is really valuable, and it is super valuable for every organization if and when it's done well. Otherwise, its value is close to zero. Even if you have it in SharePoint, even if you have it in Office 365 out of the box, if you don't pay attention to it, if you don't invest into its customization and configuration, then it doesn't have any value for your organization. So let's see what search is basically. Usually when we start talking about search, search is considered to be a search engine. It is considered to be a technology. But I really like to consider search as much more than technology, as you can see on this screen, because search is about users. You have to know your users. You have to know who your users are. You have to know how they want to use the content. You have to know what kind of content they need. So it is really important that we talk about human beings. We talk about people when we talk about search, and they are who we have to understand, which means search is a lot of psychology as well and not only technology. So you have to work with the whole system when you work with search. It might sound scary, I know, because it's much easier to talk about managed properties and result sources than talk about users and user behaviors and psychology, I know. But this is the first step, actually, to be successful with search. So if I have to draw a plan about how to improve search, I always consider 4 different things. Number 1, you have to identify your users' needs, and you have to define how a good search user experience should look like. And this is going to be the first topic we are talking about today. You also have to identify the metadata, and you have to define what information, what metadata you know about your content, and what you need for a good search. You have to identify the authoritative content sources. Even if you have hundreds of different applications, which many organizations do, you definitely don't have to connect everything to search. You just have to connect the most relevant ones. You have to identify what should be connected in which order, and definitely it doesn't have to happen overnight. So if you decide, okay, let's go with SharePoint content only first and then connect your other enterprise content management applications, connect your HR database, etc., it can be a 3-year-long process. It doesn't have to happen in the very first phase at the same time. So you have to identify those authoritative sources. And last but not least, definitely you have to have an effective strategy and plan of what you want to achieve, what milestones you have, and of course how to get there. So let's start with the user experience first. When I talk about user experience, I really like showing this example from Google. Everyone knows Google. Everyone knows how to use it. And almost everyone says they want to have a Google-like search experience. But I don't think it's a good idea in the enterprise. First of all, Google has thousands and thousands of engineers who work on their platform, on the search platform. I don't think you have thousands of employees who can work on improving search in your organization, right? So even if your organization has 1 or 2 full-time employees being responsible for search only, that's a good thing. Usually it's someone's responsibility in part-time, right? So you don't have the resources. Number 2, by Google, we display public content. In your organization, what you want to display is highly secure content. You have sensitive information, you have security trimming, and the search results have to be security trimmed. So if I have access to a document, I want to find it by search. If I have no access to a document, the document should be hidden from me, and I should not be able to find it by search. So security trimming is number 2. Number 3 is, when talking about Google search, everyone who publishes any content on the public internet, SEO, search engine optimization, is a huge thing. Organizations invest a lot into, and marketing departments invest a lot into SEO of public content. Why? Because they want to have higher ranking by Google. If I'm in the first 3 results by Google for a query, that's great. If I'm on the page 125, nobody will find me, right? So SEO and investing into SEO is a big thing when publishing content to the public internet. How about your internal content? Do your users tag the content? Do they add additional properties properly? Do they add additional metadata content? Without any bad intent, usually my experience is that users are lazy. They are lazy because they upload a document and they consider their job being done. And then they go home, or they go to have a coffee, or they go for the next task because they are always overloaded by other tasks as well. And you will see that without good quality metadata, search cannot be good enough. So there are hundreds and hundreds of reasons why you should not aim to have a Google search in the enterprise, but those three are the most important ones. So let's go back to this user experience. If I do a search for a bag by Google, what I get is a generic result set, which we call the 10 blue lines result set. What does it mean? It's too generic. I have millions and millions of results, and I'm searching for something that is good enough for me. However, if I use Amazon for the same thing, what I get is a totally different thing. The results here are not generic. I can see bags as products here. I can even purchase any of those bags with one click. Why? Because Amazon is a specific application. Amazon is a place where you can purchase things. That's it. This is the number one goal. They want to sell anything and everything to you. So this is the reason why the user experience when I do a search is different. Another example is food. If I like cooking, and I do, I always like collecting and finding new recipes. If I go to Google, the results set would be something similar, too generic. I would not see pictures, I would not see ingredients, I would not see the style of the food, etc., etc. However, there are specific applications and websites where I can find recipes with all the ingredients, with all the instructions, even with shopping lists. So, and also with pictures, so I can decide which food I want to cook for my family for dinner today, right? Why? Again, this these kind of websites can do this because they know my intent is to find a recipe. They don't try to sell me anything like Amazon does. They want to help me with cooking. Or if I want to travel, I go to another website or another type of website, and I can find here flights, I can find hotels, I can find activities, and I can make the booking right here, right? Again, a different type of search experience. So the message is that I want you to understand, the better you understand your users, the better you understand what they want to do with the results, the better you can support them with search. And having one search for everyone, like one huge everything tab in your search center is okay, but this is not what your users want. They want specific search user interfaces for their specific needs. If they want to find information about the products of your company, you have to have a search user interface that is optimized for that. If you have sales guys who want to sell your products and services, you have to have a user interface that supports their needs about your products, about your clients, about your customers, about the opportunities, etc., etc. So you have to identify those search needs. Obviously, everything that every screenshot I showed until now are not SharePoint. Just to show you some SharePoint examples. This one is a public case study of the National Danish Police, who won many awards last year because of their intranet and search-driven intranet. So what you can see on the screen here is their SharePoint search experience. And there are several customizations we have done here. So first of all, you do a query here. The primary results are the documents here, and the document results are a little bit customized. On the left side, you can see the classic way to display the result, the title and the outline of the document. But here on the right side, you can see the most important properties of the document. And you can see some of those properties are clickable. So if a user clicks on this, that will be a new query here. So you can have the users with those tricks as well. What we have here, you can see sites here, not only documents but sites, but this organization wanted to have the sites to be promoted to the top. And also we have some best bets or promoted results, because for this query, this result is the most relevant one, or considered to be the most relevant one. There is also one tiny thing that I want to show you, which is this thing here. This is actually a refiner. Those are the regions of the National Danish Police, and they definitely wanted to have a region for a refiner for this region information. So, but displaying all those 14 regions would take too much space on the screen. So we decided to have a compact design for this refiner instead. But you can see there are other custom refiners being displayed here as well. This one is another client. You can see the same pattern for you can see the same pattern for the result sets here, meaning on the left side the title and the outline is being displayed, and on the right side here the additional properties are displayed for every result. Those properties are clickable here as well, but in this case it doesn't initiate a new query, but they behave like refiners, so it will be added to the query here, not instead of the current query. You can also see that we have custom suggestions here, and also we have these related searches on the right side and related documents, which are again metadata and taxonomy based suggestions, custom web parts. But again, everything here is based on metadata, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. Okay. The next one, which we have to talk about, is the authoritative sources. I have mentioned that you have to identify those sources, you have to identify those systems or content management sources where you want to have the content from in search. And every time, in case of every client I've been working with, I find that the number one thing you can do to increase the relevance of your content is to append your content. So if you can have better quality content, then you can have better quality search. What does it mean? And this is where it is important to have tools like SysKit to analyze your content. For example, what kind of site collections you have, where you store the content, how much content you have, etc., because you have to make decisions about your content. Number one, which I call keep and freeze your content. So for example, if you have a good quality HR site with all the information that your users need from your HR, and the communication is clear, it's easy to navigate to the content, it's easy to identify which content is about what, then you can keep and freeze this content as is. You don't have to do anything. There is always a lot of content that can be either deleted or archived. For example, I don't think the cafeteria menu from 5 years ago has a huge business value for your organization, you might consider to delete it or archive it or exclude from search, because what your users are interested in is the cafeteria menu for this week and next week, right? And there is always a lot of content that has very low business value, like Christmas party pictures from 2 years ago, or draft documents of projects that have been closed 7 years ago. You don't need those content in search, right? So you can archive that content even if you have any legal reason to keep them and you are not allowed to delete them. You can archive them or you can exclude from search for better findability. Last but not least, you can keep and reorganize, restructure your content. For example, if you have sites, document libraries, or even if you have file shares, network drives, where you store millions of documents without any metadata, without any additional information, which looks like a random place where you drop in everything that you have, then you might consider clean it up and reorganize it into a new site collection, into a new library with additional metadata, etc., etc. So those are the three most important things that you can consider first of all: how to clean it up, how to make your content better quality. And it's tied to this topic a lot, but again, it's a little bit different, the metadata and the classification of the content. When talking about search, it's always important to understand not only the content, but also the users, who they are, and the context, what they want to achieve. And it's a really good example which we have in modern search in Office 365. I am on a site of my own organization, and this site is about events. This is where I store all my presentations from all the conferences and workshops and webinars like this for the last 12 years. So I can see obviously the most recent documents here, which helps me to find what I want to know, what I want to find. For example, this is the presentation I am presenting right now. But even if I want to get back to any presentation from the last 12 years, I can do a search here. And if I do a search for workshop, everything I get here are presentations or workshop-related content from this specific site. So this is the context. I am on this site. Probably I am interested in content from this site only. Or if I do a search for taxonomy, definitely I have been involved into many projects where taxonomy were an important thing, either because the organization already had a good taxonomy or because the organization developed the taxonomy during our project. But if I see those results in this context, what I can see is Taxonomy Bootcamp London, KM World Workshop, ESPC. Those are all events and conferences. I did a presentation about search and taxonomies. So the context is really important. I am not interested in client documents if I'm here. We have a separate site and we have separate hub site for that, where I would do the same search and you would see all the client-related information there. Context really matters. So Office 365 is getting better and better with respecting this context. If you do a search on a site, you get the results from that site by default. If you do a search in a hub site, you get the results from the sites that are associated to that hub site, etc., etc. So the context really matters. If I do a search in OneDrive, I get OneDrive documents that are either my documents or shared with me, etc., etc. Right? So that context really matters. And of course, the user is known. Office 365 knows who the user is, so it can help me to provide the most relevant content. Back to my Google example when I did a search for a bag. This is what you get when you search for bag. However, when you are in Hungary and Google identifies based on your IP address that you are sitting in Hungary, you have this card displayed as well based on the Google's knowledge graph. Why? Because here in Hungary we are crazy enough to have a village that is called Bag, but we write it the same way, B-A-G. This is a tiny village. It is not famous about anything, but if you do a search for a bag, even if you just want to purchase a bag, you get those classic 10 blue lines results, which are too generic. But since Google knows you are in Hungary, you also get this card being displayed as well. I'm pretty sure wherever you are located in this world, you know this experience. If you do a search for the name of a company, or if you do a search for a name of a big city, you get this card because Google thinks this is your intent. In this case, obviously, this is not my intent, but Google considers it because I'm sitting here in Budapest, Hungary. Again, if I go to a specific search application, I get suggestions here. I get if I purchase a bag, for example, if I really like this bag and I purchase this one, the next time I come here, I get suggestions, and the Amazon engine knows that I am interested in this type of bag, so therefore this will be added to the context again and again. But everything is metadata, as I told you. And let me show you a SharePoint user interface to show you how much metadata we have here. So first of all, the refiners are definitely metadata. We have to know the document type, we have to know the industry, the taxation type, and the department in order to use them as refiners. If we don't know this information, the search engine cannot figure it out. The search engine is not smart. The search engine always does what you tell it to do, right? So we have to have that metadata. We obviously have to have all that metadata that we want to display on the search results. Regardless of how we want to display it, we again have to have this metadata somehow in the search index. For being able to provide these related searches and related documents, we have to have this connection being defined somehow, so the search engine has to be able to figure out what is related to what. So if I do a search here, the search engine has to be able to define what is related to my search that is not displayed in the primary result set. Again, this is based on metadata. So everything goes back that usually I say that metadata is the soul of search. This is the most important thing. So again, we have already discussed the whys. You need metadata because it's important for search. You need metadata because it's important if you want to use it for filtering, if you want to display it by your display template, etc., etc. So you have those business requirements to fulfill with search. And also the search engine is not smart enough to figure out what you want, what your users want, and also what the content is all about. So when you create content or when you migrate content to SharePoint on-prem or online, you have to create some kind of information architecture. The site collections, the size, the libraries, the content type of everything you create, the document sets, everything will be considered as additional metadata about your content. So if you create site, the name of the site and the URL of the site will be added to every document as metadata in the search index that is stored on that site, etc., etc. So basically, you can use the information architecture to improve search, and therefore a clear and clean information architecture can improve search a lot. As I mentioned, SharePoint metadata is important. The more and better metadata you add to your content, the better your search can be. So everything that you add to it as a text, as a choice, lookup, or taxonomy fields or date type information, it will be considered and it can be used by search to improve search. And also in Office 365 we have labels, we have themes, we have many additional information that is added to the search index and that is added to the graph to provide those enhanced and improved search experience. So based on the combination of all of these, the search schema is stored in the search index by the search engine. Therefore, we can do a lot to improve the search schema. We can create our custom managed properties. We can set up and configure those managed properties, and also there are many additional settings of what we can use those managed properties for. And then once those managed properties are ready in the search schema, we can use them to create search verticals or result sources, to create refiners to be used in display templates, or filter the results by, or use them as refiners, etc., to improve the search experience. So as you can see, it's always a combination of many different things. This is why I usually say that it's art and science at the same time. You have to understand the users, you have to understand the content, you have to understand the context, and you have to find the best combination to support the user's intent. And once the search as a technology or search as an application is ready to be used, the story still does not end, because you have to take care of your users. You have to help and support your users. So to have the user adoption, you can always have a communication plan, and you can always have an education plan and a support plan. So it's always I'm not saying a never-ending story, because it has a negative message probably, but it's an ongoing process. It's not like a one-time project that you finish in 3 months from now. It's an ongoing process and you have to help and support and educate the users. And as a result, you can have happy and satisfied users in the end who like using search. And if they like using search, that means you can collect feedbacks from the users, and you can use that feedback to improve search even further. So you have to have a strategy and a plan. So first of all, I have a comparison what you get without a search strategy and what you get with a search strategy. I don't want to go through on this list one by one, but in a nutshell, if you don't have a search strategy, the adoption will be low. Your users won't like it because they don't know what to expect. you don't know what to communicate, and it will be a chaos, and it will frustrate everyone, including you, including your team members, and including every user. If you have a search strategy, meaning you know where you want to go to, that means the adoption and success can be better, and therefore the users will be happier and more satisfied, which means better productivity to your organization, which means the overall adoption of search can be really good. I can see this pattern several times. Even if organizations go to SharePoint, or if they go to Office 365, or if they go to any other search engine, that they choose a technology first. They choose, okay, we go with Office 365. They index the content next, but they think this is the only thing they have to do. And obviously the users start complaining, they cannot find the content, etc., etc. And the organization invests something into tuning the content, but without a strategy, it will be still chaos. And in the end, everyone blames the search engine, including the users, including the stakeholders. Everyone will think SharePoint is not working, Office 365 is not working, etc., etc. So it is really important to break this cycle at some point and have a good strategy. When you have a good strategy, that means you have a detailed plan with many, many different things. You obviously don't have to have hundreds of pages of search strategy document with all those things on the screen being defined in the strategy, but still you have to know where you are going next and what you want to achieve. So usually what I say is consider search as a product. If you are a product development company, you already know the product life cycle, what the product life cycle is. You know that you have versions and you communicate, hey, the next version of 1.2.3 is coming, and you can expect this new feature, better reliability, etc., etc. You can do the same with search. And you can communicate it to the user. So don't communicate, hey, we have search in Office 365. Communicate that we have search 0.7 in Office 365, which has a message that the users will expect new additional features, new improvements, etc., etc. So it helps you to communicate, but also it helps the users to communicate their feedbacks. And when you discuss the feedback, you can say, all right, this is a good feedback, thank you. We can include it in the version 1.3. So always consider search as an ongoing process with a product life cycle and not a one-time project at all. This is really, really important. So those are basically the four things I wanted to overview today. There are so many others. I could talk about search for days now, but I think it's a good time to check your questions. I can see that you already have submitted a few questions. If you have any more questions, it's a good time to enter it into the question box for GoToWebinar, and I'm going through of those questions. I have a few additional resources on the screen, and I know that you will get the presentation with all those links as well. So if you want to learn more about search and about the technologies and about how everything is possible, I have presented today. Those books and blogs and online courses are really good starting points. Let me check the questions now, but as I said, you can add your questions if you have any. It's a good time to enter your question. So one virtual question was, there was an audio issues. I hope it will be better in the recording. So if you had any audio issues, just I trust the SysKit guys to have a good quality audio in the recording. So just come back to that and hopefully it will fix it. If not, just email me or the SysKit guys, and we will figure out how to fix it. There was a question about additional resources, how to learn more about search. I mentioned that you will get those links with the presentation, of course. So, okay, there is. Do you have any links to sample display templates for search? Actually, there are a few sample display templates on my blog, on searchscreen.com. There are other display templates which I really like, are part of the PMP library. So the PMP library, if you go there and search for search, you can find some very nice display templates there as well. I'm trying to, okay. So those are the two primary places I would go for display templates. Or if you need any additional one, just let me know, because I have some that I didn't have time to publish yet. I'm happy to share if you need it. Any technical blogs which explain how to configure the relevancy of the content, or some guideline? Basically, when you want to configure the relevancy and ranking, I always recommend to go through on several steps. Number one, filter out everything that is not relevant. That improves a lot. Number two, set the managed property weight to be higher for those properties that are important for your organization. And of course, you can use query rules as well. And number four would be customize the ranking model, but it's always complex thing. There is a nice resource on the official Microsoft blog about how to do that. I'm going to send it to the SysKit guys so they can broadcast it to you, or if you drop me an email, I can send the link directly to you. The next question is, does SharePoint search work better with managed metadata, or should I use more unmanaged metadata? It's a really good question, and so basically, definitely search works better with managed metadata, because if you have a controlled and unified set of information, that can be always used more easily. If you have free text, for example, that's really good because it's easy for the users to enter their text information, but it's not unified. So one example, if talking about users and user profiles, if I work in the IT department of my organization, and if it's a free text field on the user profile. I can enter IT. Other people can enter information technology. Or some people like to call IT to be innovation technology. Those will be three different values, and I'm pretty sure that the users are creative enough to come up with other abbreviations of IT. So if you call that information, it's not unified at all. So if you want to use it as refiners, for example, to filter for people who work in the IT department, you will have many different values on the refinement panel. You will have IT, information technology, innovation technology, etc., right? So if you have managed data, that's much easier to configure search to use it. If you have free text information or free numerical information or free any kind of information, it's always a bigger challenge to unify that information to make search really nice and really good. Okay, I have time, I think, for two more questions. In your strategy plan, do you build out the taxonomy, content types, manage properties, as well as display templates? Basically, in the strategy plan, we don't work out those technical details, and you have to know I am not a taxonomist. So I usually work with taxonomists or librarians who can help with that and who can build your organization's taxonomy. I do that, and I really love working with those people because they are super smart, but I cannot develop the taxonomy itself. The information architecture, like the size structure, like the content types, etc., are a different thing. Sometimes I do that, sometimes other consultants do that, who I work together with. And the third part of this question is the manage properties and display template and all the search configuration and customization things. Of course, those are part of the search strategy, always. And I hope this helps. And the last question is there any step-by-step guidance available on implementing any of the examples shown, as this was mainly theory? You can go to my website. Many of those steps are described there, either written by me or written by other genius guys like Matthew McDermott or Mikael Svensson, who wrote a couple of blog posts for Search Explained. Or you can take my online course that also describes this this process on the technical level. So how to create a display template, how to create a custom refiner, etc. But basically, if I go back to this picture, mainly what you can see here as you can see here, those are the main things that you have to work with on the technical level. So if you search for them on my blog or on any other search blogs, you can collect a lot of information for free from the internet. Will the links will, yes, the links will be included. I'm going to share the additional links with the SysKit guys, and you will get it together with the presentation as well. Yes, I think I don't have any further questions. So for now, I want to say thank you for attending this webinar and for your questions. I really liked your questions. If you have any further questions, about search, don't hesitate to drop me an email, or I'm pretty sure if you send a message to the SysKit guys, they are also happy to help. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Agnes, for this wonderful lecture, and I also want to thank all of you for listening. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we will send you a recording of this webinar tomorrow. So thanks again, and see you all at the next SysKit webinar. Bye.